Let me welcome all of you here. I'm Terry Kramer, Faculty Director of the Easton Technology Management Center here at UCLA Anderson. I have to say, of all of the events we've ever held, I think this has got to be the best location ever. For those of you that work for Amazon, congratulations, you're in a great place here. And thanks to our Amazon colleagues here for hosting us. So listen, I cannot think of a better time to get our alums together. And it's great to see a bunch of familiar faces. It's great to see a bunch of new faces. The things that are going on with technology could not be more profound. And I think you'll find that in the discussion that we have tonight. When I think about technology, I always think about its impact in three areas. One is its impact on customers, so thinking about how products and services are changing. Second area is how it's affecting companies, enterprises, industries, et cetera, changing who are the winners and the losers and what happens to them, et cetera. And the third area is society. How is it affecting society for good, creating new cures in healthcare and education, et cetera? And where is it affecting work? Where are there digital divide-related issues, data privacy issues, et cetera? Those issues, to me, are the reason why getting an MBA and lifelong learning matter so much. So we're going to cover those items today in three different elements. Number one, we're fortunate we have our Dean, Tony Bernardo, with us. He's going to talk about the updated strategy, and I'm going to ask him a variety of questions in a fireside chat format. And what you'll see is, what is number one, the role of a business school in this changing environment? And number two, how do you think about transformations? Because Tony, as the dean, has got to think about how do you transform UCLA Anderson for this new environment. So that'll be first. Second thing is I'll do some tech trends and talk about what we're doing at the Easton Center. So how does that strategy flow down to the center itself? And then finally, we're very fortunate to have John Jones with us, who's one of the senior vice presidents responsible for worldwide go-to-market for Amazon. And we're going to talk to him about his views about technology-based innovation, transformations, et cetera. So let me, first of all, before we move into anything else, I want to first just acknowledge our Easton board that's here. Do you want to just stand up, the members of the Easton Center board? Stand up really quickly. These are the representatives that are from a variety of industries that have contributed their time, their knowledge, their resources to ensure the success of the center. So a big thank you for your service. Secondly, we've got a couple of members of the leadership team of Anderson, in addition, obviously, to Tony. One is Jill Baldoff. Where's Jill? She's the head of alumni relations. There she is. Jill, thank you very much for everything you continue to do for us in building the community. And Jill Heisey. Where's Jill Heisey? She's in the back. Jill has got a new role with the school as part of the update to the strategy that's focusing on strategic partnerships, because the partnerships we have fundamentally going to affect the experience of our students. Now, we've got a bunch of things to go over. We're going to probably go through the content as quick as we can, but you'll get a good flavor overall. Tony, let me ask you to come on up because I'm going to interview him. And as you may know from our UCLA Anderson events, we use Slido wherever we can. So I encourage you, if you have questions for Tony or for me, because we're going to consolidate the Q&A into one short Q&A at the end of both of our presentations. Go on to slido.com, enter Easton 1, the number 1. So slido.com, Easton 1, and type in either your question or you can upvote one of the existing ones. And I'll endeavor to pose the most popular questions. So Tony, let me get started here. First of all, Tony, as you may know, has been with the school now for about 30 years. And he had one of the most interesting experiences. I think he's going to write a book after he's done being dean about taking on the role literally 6 months before COVID hit. Right. And thinking about what do you do to reposition the school. It's a fascinating kind of learning on digital transformations, rapid fire. How do you do that? And then you've had an interesting set of successes and challenges setting up a new strategic plan. So we're going to cover all of those. But Tony, would you just start out high level and just give us a state of the school? What are the things that are going well? What are the things you're worried about? How are things going?
First, great to see you all. Great to be here. Thanks to everyone from Amazon to allow us to be in this absolutely wonderful space. There's a lot going on at the school. We'll talk more about the strategic plan and the recommendations that came out of it. We're putting a lot of emphasis on data analytics, technology, inclusive leadership, innovation. We're building cross-campus partnerships. We're prioritizing areas that address large societal challenges like health and sustainability. So a lot of momentum. The backdrop, you probably have read a lot about decline in interest in MBA education. That's been a trend that's been going on for about 10 years. It's a trend that's hit us in virtually all the top schools. And we feel that this unique set of offerings that we're putting together as part of our strategic plan and the priorities that we're emphasizing are going to allow us to continue to attract outstanding students. But that's no question a headwind that we're facing and a challenge that we're facing. But I'm optimistic that we'll be extraordinarily distinctive in what we do going forward. And we'll be a place that a lot of top students are going to want to come to.
Yep. Tony, let me dive deeper on this. The idea of transformative leaders, which is part of the strategy, go back to COVID for us. When all of a sudden you had a shift to online education, very different model. What did you learn about transformations just from that process?
So I can tell you a few things. I really learned how important an organizational culture is, a collaborative culture, a culture where people really, really believe in the values of the institution and have chosen to be there because they resonate with them. This was a period when a lot of our staff and faculty were dealing with, their own issues and their own families, but we recognized that our students were also facing extraordinarily challenging issues. And in an environment like that, it's not uncommon for people to focus inwardly and deal with their own issues. But to see the community really rally, put the students first, and do whatever they could to manage this really remarkable set of challenges. Now, we, no question, made a lot of mistakes that we would have, if we, with the benefit of hindsight, there's a lot of things we would have done differently. But the way the organization came together was really extraordinary to watch, and not just even not just within our school. What we were doing outside in the community, in the broader UCLA community, in the region, was really inspiring. And so the going through these types of changes really, I think, requires a unique culture. I think a real sense of purpose among the staff, the faculty, really everyone in the community.
Yep. And so we're going to get into the strategy in more detail in a second here, but does it help when you're making the transformation with COVID to be at war, in essence, that you've got this urgency, you don't have a lot of choice, it's survival or not? Did that help the transformation in essence?
It certainly does. I mean, if you think about an academic institution, I was on the faculty for 25 years, and I can say this, I think nobody would disagree with me. For the most part, tenured faculty in particular, they're independent contractors. You don't have a lot of carrots and sticks. You try to be persuasive and hope that they can rally around a common cause, and that's hard to do. But during COVID, it wasn't hard to do. Everybody recognized the challenge in front of us. Everybody recognized that they would have to rally around it. And I would say, much like the U.S. Congress, when sometimes they have to really address an emergency, they come together. Otherwise, it's not so easy.
Excellent. So let's dive into the strategy itself and start, because again, these are all lessons for leadership. Tell us about the process in developing the strategy. First of all, what did you see externally that said, coming in as a dean, we got to update the strategy of the school? And then what process did you use to really figure out what the right strategy is?
So, I having been on the faculty for 25 years, the way I viewed the school when I became dean is that the set of activities we were undertaking would have been the same set of activities, or very similar to a set of activities that virtually any other MBA program would have undertaken. And when you think about what you learned in strategy, you really think about what are the key resources and assets you have, what are sources of competitive advantage, and you really want to build distinction around those things. It doesn't mean that you have to have all of those assets in place. Sometimes you have to invest in things, but you have to have a strategy, I think, that really fits with the assets. And when I think about UCLA and I think about what those assets are, I think about a fantastic collaborative culture, which is extremely unique among MBA programs. We're in LA, which is a very dynamic city. It's a global city. It's diverse. It's on the frontier of sort of many new ideas. I think about UCLA broadly, #1 public university with extraordinary schools of health, engineering, law, theater, film, and television. And so looking at all those assets, when I took the role, I said, we're really not taking advantage of a lot of that. And similarly, we're a great public university and we should be addressing large-scale societal challenges. And so that was the sort of impetus for putting together a strategic planning committee, really trying to think about a strategy where we could be distinctive because of the unique assets we had, differentiating. I think a lot of MBA education tends to be pretty cookie cutter, and so to do something differentiating, and so that was the impetus for it. As in terms of the process, because academic institutions, business schools are not hierarchical, I can't really tell anybody what to do, to be honest. For the most part, it's persuasion and coming to some shared understanding and making sure there's a really inclusive process where you hear from all the voices in the community so that you get buy-in. And that was, from a process perspective, really, really important. We engaged close to 100 faculty and staff, about 36 students who were analysts, our alumni, the board, and the idea was if we could come to this shared understanding about the path forward, it was much more likely that we're going to see us execute it.
So let me ask you selfishly the role of technology in the strategy. A lot of the people here are with a variety of tech companies. And by the way, I was just asking Jill, our number of alumni in the Seattle area is one of the fastest growing areas. And by the way, about a third of our alums go into tech now. Bay Area is the #1 place where our students go. Seattle has just eclipsed Los Angeles, which is an amazing kind of factoid, but it says how much employment has happened with Amazon, with Microsoft, variety of other companies. But say now about what's the role of tech within that new strategy?
Right. So there's a few elements to this. I mean, I don't know if many of you know this, but we place more students in tech on the West than any other school. I think among all business schools, we have the 4th highest proportion of students who go into tech. We're clearly drawing. And you also know that LA in the West, LA is has a growing tech ecosystem and a lot going on in the Bay Area and Seattle. And these are all areas of interest for our students. Our students have a strong geographic preference to be on the West. They've demonstrated this for decades. One key set of capabilities that all business schools try to develop in their students is the ability to solve complex business problems. And that's really, fundamental, obviously, to what we do. And it was pretty clear that data, the fact that there's this incredible proliferation of data, estimates are, and it's not easy to measure these things, that the amount of data is doubling every 18 months to 2 years. And not coincidentally, the evolution of tools like AI and generative learning tools complemented that. And so now you have this proliferation of data. You have tools now that help you analyze that data in ways that we wouldn't have been able to do up until very, very recently. And that was going to fundamentally change the way every role in business and every industry was going to evolve. And so fundamental to the strategy was building analytic adeptness and tech savviness among our students, but focusing also in areas that not just intersect with some of the capabilities I mentioned earlier, but also had a very, very strong data component. So going to health, for example, as a priority area for the school, not only does it take advantage of all the assets I mentioned earlier, the fundamental innovations that are happening in health right now are data and tech driven. And so we viewed this as kind of a complete marriage of what the underlying capabilities were and what our unique strengths are. And that was one of the reasons why I was very compelled by the strategy. It complemented itself in so many different ways.
So basically, Tony, when you talk about the strategy, there was a kind of a call to action externally. Number two, you got a broad group of people together in a process that was much more likely to be thoughtful about the strategy, include a lot of people in the process. You thought about how you could execute and make sure you can kind of own this. What are the things you worry about? Those are all the kind of good things.
Yeah.
What are the things that keep you up at night about the strategy?
So if you see how the strategy is evolving, you'll see that in terms of execution, some things are moving very, very quickly. Some things are moving much less quickly. And for an organization like ours that's not used to doing this, it's a set of muscles that we don't really have, and we're trying to develop. I've been at Anderson 30 years. We do a strategic plan roughly every 5 years. So I'm guessing this is the sixth one that I've seen in my time. And normally what happens is we write up a plan, it gets filed away, and there's no concerted effort to actually implement it. I really wanted to make sure that didn't happen. So I put in place some key people in key roles. One is here, Jill Heisey, who was introduced earlier, around strategic partnerships. I also created a new role, an assistant dean who would oversee all of this, a dean for business transformation. I created another role around employer relations that Regina Ragassi's led. I thought it was very, very important also not just to have the right people in these roles, but to really signal that we were serious about implementation. Because, in academic institutions, and I'll be honest about this, tenured faculty have 30, 35-year lifetimes, and deans have 5 to 7-year lifetimes. And so if they don't think a dean is really serious, they'll just say, I'll outlive him. If I don't really like this, he'll be gone, and I'll do what's best. So that challenge is pretty extraordinary in a very, very flat organization that isn't used to doing it.
Yeah. Let me ask you a last question, then I'll actually take a couple of questions now from the audience that we've got. But last question for you, what will success look like? If you go out 5 or 10 years, how will you kind of say, yep, this is what we intended to do, and this is the North Star?
Yeah, I mean, so our positioning is around developing transformative leaders. And transformative leaders have 2 broad sets of capabilities. I mentioned one, they have to be able to solve complex business problems. And we think this means being able to understand the proper uses of data, understanding new technologies, and having industry acumen. You really have to understand the frictions and the issues that have to be overcome in order to really make transformative change in an industry. That's a sort of a set of characteristics that I think are critical. Another set of characteristics is it's not just enough to be able to solve a problem or understand a complex business problem. To be honest, as dean, after 25 years at Anderson, I think I understood the problems pretty well. The question is, how do you catalyze the organization into action? And that's a whole other set of attributes. And that requires creativity and innovation. It requires being collaborative and inclusive, setting a sense of purpose within the organization so people rally around a common cause. And I think being ethical and ethical leadership is absolutely essential. So it's not just enough to be able to solve the problem. You've got to catalyze an organization into to action. And I can say, being a finance person, for 25 years, the first set of attributes are things that people traditionally called hard skills. From my perspective and as a finance person, those are the easy ones. The hard things are catalyzing individuals who have very, very different potential motivations and really getting an organization to act. And those are the kinds of leaders we want to develop. What would be success? Well, it would be placing students in roles, highly impactful roles in organizations, and seeing them make that transformative change. It would be seeing a lot of new venture activity at UCLA Anderson that is tech-driven innovation, particularly towards large societal challenges. For example, we have a tremendous reputation in entrepreneurship. We're one of the top 10 schools worldwide in developing new ventures. And if you measure it as new ventures or money raised or any way you want to measure it, we're one of the top 10 schools worldwide. But historically, the kind of innovation and entrepreneurial activity that's come out of UCLA has been very consumer focused and not necessarily addressing big societal challenges. So, I'd love to see that same level of activity focused on some of our biggest challenges, two of which I mentioned, health and climate and sustainability. So those would be, some of the things that I would like to see, that we're really, in the end, we have to be making impact. We have to be making impact on student lives. We have to be impacting society through our thought leadership. And we have to be addressing large societal challenges. And those are the things we should be measuring to understand whether we're on the right path.
Excellent. Let me pose a couple of questions. We've got number one question posed is the lifelong learning. There's a lot of people as they get, several years out of Anderson.
Yeah.
The world is continuing to change. What is the plan to create more of a sense of lifelong learning, especially related to tech?
Yes. And there's a lot of elements to the strategic plan, but one of the key elements is harnessing technology as learning technologies, not just for our students in our degree programs, but for our alumni. One of the things we learned during COVID is there's a tremendous amount of latent demand among our alumni for content. It's hard to notice that in an in-person environment because many of our alumni are in faraway places. Even if you live in Orange County and you think about coming to UCLA, it's far away. I probably flew to Seattle faster than somebody could drive from Orange County to UCLA's campus. So in a sense, everything is distant when you're in a place like Los Angeles. And you didn't really get an understanding of just how deep that demand was for content. And Jill's here. Jill Baldoff is the head of alumni relations. If you look at the events and activities that we put on during COVID, the massive increase in interest came from our alumni. And it's not surprising. Our alumni now are changing jobs. I think it's something like 13 times over their careers. Their responsibilities are changing frequently. The things they learned when they were at Anderson are maybe not as relevant as they are today, especially if you think about some of the things that are priorities in our strategic plan, data, AI, and things like that. These were things that for some of our alumni were much, much less important. So there's a tremendous amount of reskilling, and beautifully, we have a technology that allows us to deliver it at a relatively low cost. And even better, that technology is improving by leaps and bounds. So, Zoom is pretty crude, and we did a lot of things by Zoom, but the kinds of investments that firms really, all kinds of big tech firms are putting into technologies around learning and working remotely are going to fundamentally improve the quality of that. So all of that is to say, we felt this was a great opportunity to develop lifelong learning initiatives, to create content that we could put out to our alumni. We want to put it out at effectively zero cost. The initial programming, which is going to be coming out very, very soon, is centered around some of the key priority growth areas, those qualities that we want to develop in our students. Data analytics, tech transformation, inclusive leadership among them. And we believe that relationship that we have with our alumni is going to deepen. One of the reasons want to provide this is I think we need to really fundamentally change the nature of the value proposition we offer students. It's not just the 2 years that you're at Anderson. We're going to be there with you for your lifetime. And from a very selfish perspective, if we provide that value to the alumni, they will engage with us and provide value to us. And that will all be a very virtuous cycle. So I think this what we already know about the use of technology and how quickly it will improve in terms of delivering learning is a tremendous opportunity for us and a tremendous opportunity for you to continue your learning well beyond your time at Anderson and really, really feel connected to the school.
Excellent. Last question for you. I'm going to combine a couple of them. But the size of the MBA program, what's happened with the size of the MBA program, and how do you think about the mix of online versus in-person education?
Okay, so I mentioned this at the very beginning. One of the headwinds we face is declining applicants to the MBA program, full-time MBA program. The fully employed MBA and executive MBA program is actually, if you look over time, has been growing with some trend. So it's kind of a change in the composition of the kinds of programs. That's probably not surprising because the opportunity cost of being a full-time MBA student is very, very high. And so it's probably not surprising that there's been a shift in the interest. Well, what's happened at Anderson has happened at most other MBA programs. There's been a decline in applicants and for now a decade. And I felt that, and we felt when we went through the strategic plan, that we couldn't maintain the same class size and maintain the excellence of the class at 360, which was the number that we traditionally targeted for the MBA program. So we now have targeted 300 for the program. That's a reduction from 5 sections to 4. We think that is, fits well with the applicant pool in terms of our ability to bring in the kinds of students we have traditionally. At the same time, we don't want to go really below that. There's, I think, value, a lot of value, to having a program that has a sufficient scale. It's easier to build networks. It's easier for recruiters to come to campus if they know they have a robust set of students to look at. It's easier to put together an extensive curriculum if you're serving enough students. So there's a trade-off there, but we think 300 is the right number. And this is the first year that we're at that number, and we're really very, very proud of this class, and we'll follow it along.
Good. And online versus in person?
Online, yeah. Sorry, I apologize. Very different depending on the nature of the program. In FEMBA and EMBA, the fully employed and executive MBA program, the demand for remote teaching is very, very strong. Right now, for those programs, we deliver about half of the content online. In the full-time MBA program, we do actually quite a small amount online. Here's, though, where I think things are going to have to change, and I'll maybe spend 2 minutes to talk about this. There's a lot of discussion, you've probably read a lot about it, the declining value of an MBA. And is the value of an MBA declining? And there's been lots of business press about that. I think that's wrong. In fact, the data clearly demonstrates that. If you look at starting salaries for our students, they're growing at very, very high rates. Not just students at Anderson, but students everywhere. Demand for our students is still strong, and compensation reflects the fact that the marketplace values the MBA. I think they're using the wrong language. It's not whether the value of an MBA is declining, it's whether the value proposition of an MBA is declining. And that is the cost of MBA education has grown too fast relative to the value. The value's been growing. And in fact, I don't think there's ever been a better time than now to get an MBA. If you think about the challenges facing leaders today, and they're myriad, not that they didn't face them before, but I think almost anybody would tell you in positions of leadership, there's never been a more challenging time. And there's never been a time where it would be as valuable to learn about many of the things that we do in our program. But what's happened, unfortunately, is that the value has gone up, but the cost has gone up at a faster rate. So the reason that language is important is the solution to that problem is very different if you think it's the former or the latter. If you think the MBA is declining in value, you might want to leave the enterprise, right? You might want to decide, okay, we're going to do business analytics programs, masters in finance, and get rid of the MBA. No, I actually think that's the wrong problem. The problem is how do we deliver a great education at a lower cost? That's where technology comes in. Now, I think a model that makes a lot of sense, you start off with a core where you build relationships, you build those networks that are going to serve you well throughout your life. Find a way to be able to do the electives and some of the stuff in between while you're working to reduce the opportunity cost, which is a huge part of the cost of getting an MBA. It's the foregone income. And use technology to bring down the cost of delivery. And then bring everybody back together through some kind of capstone experience to kind of close it all up. I think you could get as close to the experience that students are getting now at a cost, both opportunity cost and out-of-pocket cost, which is significantly lower. Those kinds of innovations are inevitable because the value proposition has been eroded.
Good. So, Tony, let me close with my so what's, just very brief ones, and I'll let you upgrade them or give any of your
I've known never to
never upgrade them.
Yeah.
So, 3 takeaways I got. We talked a lot about strategic transformations, what the school's going through, et cetera. Never underrate culture. This is the thing that culture eats strategy for breakfast. That is a huge, huge part of the equation. Second takeaway is think about where you can differentiate yourself or own. So you've got to look at the assets. By the way, this goes on an individual basis. What is your kind of secret sauce? What is the secret sauce of the enterprise? And you're saying UCLA's got these great schools all over, with the medical school and UCLA Health, et cetera. But think about where we can differentiate is the second piece. And technology, without kind of serving our own interests at the Easton Center, is a massive part of the updated strategy. Those are the 3 takeaways I got.
Absolutely. I mean, on the last point, we're talking about having impact, developing transformative leaders. Technology is at the center of virtually all transformation happening now, and we have to be closely aligned with that. So not an upgrade, just an elaboration. So I don't get in trouble with you.
You won't get in trouble, definitely not. Listen, let me just say, Tony, I always like to put in this plug, but all this stuff kind of sounds good unless you have a dean that really believes this stuff and makes it happen. I'll never forget my first interaction with him was telling me the importance of these partnerships across campus, thinking about cross-disciplinary innovation, et cetera. He's been a huge supporter of the Easton Center and the learning experience. Tony, a big thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to shift over. Those of you that I've had as students, it'll be deja vu, which will either be good or bad. But I'm going to talk just a little bit about tech trends, and then I'm going to talk about the Easton Center, especially in relation to what Tony talked about with strategy. How does it kind of flow into what we're trying to do at the Easton Center? Jill reminded me I got way too many slides, so I'm going to breeze by a bunch of these, but you'll get the general idea. And if any of you want a copy, just send me a note, and I will forward those on to you. The areas of innovation I'd like to cover how did we get to where we got to with the areas of tech innovation. It's very easy to identify one-off areas of innovation. What's more relevant is why now, why these innovations, what's real, et cetera, because that's what I call the mental software that will allow you to succeed for the future. And as I mentioned, talk about what the implications are for the center itself. Remember 3 key constituents to tech. One is the impact on customers, another one's the impact on enterprises, and a third one is the impact on society. All 3 of these matter a lot. They're actually dynamic in nature. And again, we'll cover those. If I were to give you one slide about what type of innovation we're seeing, why are we seeing this innovation, and how are tech companies approaching it, it would be these 4 drivers. On the top left-hand side, and again, I'm going to go through these fairly briefly, but when you look at tech capabilities, infrastructure, So high-speed mobile networks, when you look at the availability of cloud computing, low cost, when you look at the Internet of Things, connected devices of all types, 25 billion in the world today, growing to 75 billion, and artificial intelligence, you have maturity, availability, and low-cost technology that can power products and services. When you look on the top right, value propositions. If you're in a bad market, and the market is clearly economically softer than not, people say, oh, have you gotten really bearish on a bunch of areas of tech? I always go to the value propositions. What Tony was talking about with the MBA, the value propositions in most of the notable areas of tech innovation are very attractive. If they were not attractive, you'd say capital is going to flee out and you're not going to get a lot of investment there. So what do you see in some of these areas? We're going to talk about generative AI, the ability to take cognition and drive that availability, lower costs that boosts employee productivity is a major attractive value proposition. If you look at the areas of autonomous vehicles, as difficult as they are to make them work, think about the ability to have people free themselves up for their average hourly commute. Take the number of hours you commute a day, the average worker, times the number of workers, and look at that market size. It's gigantic. And that's why people still kind of stick with things, et cetera. And then diagnostic and predictive accuracy, which continue to get better and better. So value propositions are attractive. The third area, bottom left, is business models. So can companies make money in this area? And because of a variety of ways that companies have structured themselves, the shared economics, when you look at Uber and Lyft and Airbnb and a bunch of other companies, you're seeing the ability to share a single asset. We're going to get into competing in an age of AI, but the general argument is there are scale economies with tech. More users, more data drive down per unit costs. And you see this in a lot of areas. That allows a lot of large tech companies and small entrepreneurial ones to do well. Not everything is positive. So if you look in the bottom right, there's a bunch of great applications for tech in areas like education and healthcare, et cetera. There is a growing level of concern about data privacy, antitrust, digital divide, and by the way, on generative AI, future of work, and whether it's all rational or not. And it's fascinating because if you look at COVID, going through COVID, tech was our best friend. When you look at online education and Zoom, when you look at digital streaming solutions allowed for entertainment, we looked at Amazon and shopping, et cetera, everybody loved tech. But it's that old expression, familiarity breeds contempt. And Eric Schmidt was saying, now that everybody has got tech, they're starting to say there's things I don't like about it, and I'm worried about it. And so there's a much greater focus now about how products are being developed. Who is the target market? How do you think about transformations? Because in the absence of that, no matter how good the value proposition is and how good the business models are, you're going to find things don't advance. And that explains a lot about what areas of innovation we're seeing, but also how companies are going about innovation. If I were to leave you with one item for the evening, the three most relevant pieces of work that I've seen in the last 2 years are the three things I've just put up here. One is competing in the age of AI. So this is work that Karim Lakhani did that basically said, let me look at digitally oriented companies and see what makes them unique and special. Why are they getting so many customers and where are they going, et cetera? And we'll talk in more detail, but it basically said these are the future companies that are going to win. And you better learn to compete in an environment of AI or you will be at a notable disadvantage. Second area was McKinsey just put out a report in June that's looked at the economic potential of generative AI. And I'm going to go through a few summary slides on that, but it is unbelievable, their messages about what sectors, what jobs, and why this is going to be so foundational. Many people are saying that generative AI is the most foundational area of technology-based innovation in the last 30 years. Matter of fact, Sundar Pichai, I think, said it rivals when electricity was developed. So it's something to really get into and understand. final area was an interview of Kareem Lakhani, the guy that I mentioned in the beginning piece, who wrote Competing in Age of AI. He was just interviewed by the managing director of the Harvard Business Review, and the title of his piece was AI won't replace humans, but humans with AI will replace humans without AI. It's saying that you better get in and understand the technology. It doesn't mean it's perfect. There's going to be a lot of issues on guardrails and how it gets used, et cetera. But hanging back is going to create a real disparity in society. And same issue goes, remember, for companies. Companies that don't digitally transform will get into a bad position. So I'll go into these in more detail, but I think some 3 items I would say to read if you haven't already read them. Competing in an age of AI. What did it say? And again, I'm just going to give you a summary of it, but it basically said there's a new type of firm that's digital first. The way the company is organized and structured, how it collects data is a digital first company. And by the way, the new kind of tech companies we talk about today, Google and Amazon and Microsoft, et cetera, would generally fall in that camp. And they contrast this to companies that are not digital first, which tend to be legacy organizations. And there's nothing wrong with legacy, but it says they were not set up to capture data. They were set up to do manual transactions, to sell and manage products, et cetera, et cetera. The absence of having that digital core puts those legacy companies at a notable disadvantage. I used to work at Vodafone years ago, big telecom company, Verizon here in the US, Vodafone abroad. Living example of what a legacy company is, because the company was comprised of a series of acquisitions, by the way, in the US, not just abroad, but in the US. Markets that were bought in Northern California and bought in Arizona, et cetera. Legacy billing systems. It is not a digital first company. And so the argument in this competing in an age of AI is these digital-first companies have a unique structure to capture data, to analyze the data, to test the data, and create superior products. And the challenge even for today's tech companies is newer companies are coming in. This I find amazingly similar to people's careers. You know, they always kind of say, if you think you're doing great right now, there's another generation coming in, and they're fit for purpose for that environment. So the challenge is many individuals and organizations need to digitally transform, because in the absence of that, you have tough competition coming. And so this piece basically said that there are increasing returns to scale when you're a digital-first company. So there is lower and lower costs as you're capturing more data. You're able to drive better predictive accuracy with data. That creates unique advantage. And the interesting thing that happens, and maybe interesting as a euphemism, but when digital-first companies collide with traditional ones, in almost every case, the digital-first company wins. This, if you want to look at a kind of case study, many of you that were in my tech management class, I lead with a case on Moderna, the maker of the COVID-19 vaccine. And they were backed by Flagship Ventures, which was oriented around the what-ifs. What if we could develop a COVID-19 vaccine that is efficacious, that could be developed in literally a few minutes' time and a few months' time, and allow for improvement in future vaccines? So Moderna describes itself first as a tech platform and second as a pharma company. And their argument is a lot of the pharma companies are not digital first. They're highly siloed organizations that aren't collecting data across the enterprise that hurts them in successive inventions. So big message is think about competing in an age of AI. If you look at this chart here, this looks at market cap back in 1989 by a variety of companies and locations and compares it to 2021. When you look in 89, what do you notice about the types of companies that had the highest market cap? They were banks and they were energy companies. And where were they located? In general, they were located in the US and Japan. What has happened in relatively short period of time to 2021? It's dominated by tech companies, dominated. And where are those companies located? They're located in the US and they're located in China. It's a real kind of awakening about how do you continue to adjust for what is a changing environment, where scale matters a lot, where digital adoption matters a lot. And by the way, it'll be a fascinating exercise to go out another 20 years and see how many of these companies aren't there anymore because somebody new has moved in. So very important reminder that no matter how much we think we're kind of on top of the game, and whether that's at a national level, a company level, or an individual level, somebody else is going to come after you. It's amazing. By the way, I'm going to embarrass Sam here. I was complimenting him. He's in our development group. And I said, he's so good, he was like Radar in MASH. And he looked at me like, what are you talking about? And I said, you must have seen the show MASH. And he said, no. And I said, well, Radar is a guy that kind of thought ahead of the commanding officer, et cetera, et cetera. It's a reminder that time marches on and you better stay current with stuff, or you better learn the past better. Maybe that's a better message. Okay, so let me talk about generative AI, which to me is the most profound area of technology-based innovation. So many of you are familiar with this. This is a newest area of artificial intelligence that's been driven by large language models. And this is an ability to train the machine to understand patterns. And in addition to all this, there's an ability to interact with the machine that never existed before. There are several limitations. The limitations are it doesn't always understand the text it's generating, it can generate bias, and it can have outdated information. But when you look at the improvements over time, they're massive. It is fascinating to look literally over the last few months what improvements have occurred with generative AI. Let me share with you the second article that I mentioned, which is the economic potential of generative AI. This is a piece of work that was done by McKinsey last June that I think is just foundational. They basically said generative AI could increase the impact of artificial intelligence. Now remember, artificial intelligence is a gigantic market, gigantic opportunity. They're saying it's going to improve it by 15 to 40%. They identified 4 job categories that are likely going to be most affected by generative AI. And most affected can be improving productivity. It can also be eventually job loss. Let's hope it's not dramatic, but they're basically saying these are the areas: customer operations, marketing and sales, software engineering, and R&D. Anybody notice what type of jobs these are? Are these blue-collar jobs like have been automated in factories for the last 20 years? These are white-collar jobs. And people kind of will talk about this as a revenge against all the software engineers that automated blue-collar jobs out. Now they're going to be hit next. But these are the 4 areas they identified. They looked at 3 sectors that are likely to be hit the most because of the number of people they have working in these areas and the size of these organizations. So banking, high-tech, and life sciences. Lots of automation issues, and then lots of issues about the fairness of data, what's going to happen on job transitions, et cetera. This is where I'm going to breeze through a bunch, but let me just give you a couple of examples they highlight. In customer operations, you would have the ability via generative AI for the machine to better understand who you are. What is your background? What experience have you had as a customer? What do you value? What's going on in a macroeconomic environment? And pose offers to somebody on an individual basis. And this isn't just automating a customer service representative. This is actually saying the effectiveness, the personalization, the predictive capability is going to get better and better. So that's just one example. If you look at marketing and sales, a good example would be to look at what Salesforce is doing now. The ability to generate a marketing campaign, to say, listen, this is the target set of users, these are the activities going on, and this is the type of offer that I want to create. And in some cases, it'll be human in the loop. In some cases, it may be fully automated. So companies like Adobe are thinking a lot about what's the impact, good and bad, on these. And as I mentioned, you have a variety of other companies that are using this already, like Salesforce. Software engineering, same story. You'd have human kind of design, high level, what are you trying to achieve? And then the capability to write code and develop product would be done more and more generative AI. And then product R&D, similar story. So an interesting kind of pattern here about information. Now, a lot of the capabilities today are still evolving. But I always kind of tell people, be careful looking at today and say, oh, it's not good, it got something wrong. Because the improvement in performance has been unbelievable. There's interesting stats that said the ability to kind of create the intelligence of a person. If you looked at ChatGPT-3, it was basically, I think, the intelligence of a 4 or 5-year-old about 6-9 months ago. It's now almost the intelligence of an adolescent. That ability to continue to garner information and drive reasonable outcomes is notable. So let me do the last kind of key piece on the tech trends. AI won't replace humans, but humans with AI will replace those without. A few key items related to this. Digital economy is growing. Supply and demand changes with AI. One of the things that Karim Lakhani said is if you look at per unit costs on things like software development, you go to the App Store, the cost of delivering something has gone down quite a bit. Generative AI is the newest way for interacting, generative AI being thought of as a co-pilot. Now, what did he say overall, which I thought was really kind of profound? He said, if you look at what's going on with generative AI and AI in general, prediction is getting better. Interaction now with generative AI, you can communicate back and forth that didn't exist to the degree it does right now. You have the ability to create. You think about the writer strike, the actor strike in Los Angeles. They're very worried about content creation, which is going to likely advance. And you have globalization. There are a bunch of companies that are creating avatars and dubbing languages and other things that create lifelike images that is going to lower the cost in a lot of areas of media and entertainment. Enhanced productivity potential, but also growing disparity. If I were to say, what is the summary, good and bad, of all this stuff, is those last two items. The productivity likely in the nation and for companies and individuals is going to skyrocket. That's going to be a really good piece of news. The question is the disparity. Who has access and uses it and who doesn't? And that's going to be a big issue, especially at a societal level. If society starts feeling that people are just being bypassed right and left, it's going to be a tough sledding. So this is what Tony was talking about. When you talk about a transformative leader, you have to think about it. This quote that Karim shared at the bottom from William Gibson, the future is here, it's just not yet evenly distributed. Very important set of messages. So let me just in a couple of minutes talk about the Easton Center. Because remember, in the area of generative AI and all the things going on, there's both the study of that in the classroom, so cases we do and all of that, but it's also how we use it in the classroom that matters. So key initiatives. We have 4 levers in the Easton Center to execute against our own mission. The curriculum, our innovation challenge, which is a cross-campus innovation challenge. We have a variety of conferences and workshops, and then we have our Easton Fellows that do a big project which is on tech entrepreneurship this year. Let me just mention, we have 2 new product management classes that have been launched in the last 2 years. So a product management design class and a product management delivery class. These are for tech-oriented businesses. And we have practitioners teaching this that are both smart and they have great industry background from Uber, from Meta, variety of companies. We have 3 classes. Tony references in AI, an AI Essentials class that Brad Null teaches. He was at Reputation.com. He's now at Grayscale. And then an AI and Operations class that Todd Holloway's teaching. Todd is a former head of data analytics for Netflix. Then he went to Nike, and now he's at Booking.com. By the way, Booking.com, for all you know, is an Amsterdam-based company. He flies out to UCLA on a 5-week period and just works remote so he can teach at Anderson. We've just got really good commitment levels. Final one, management in the age of AI, 50,000 foot. How does management change based on AI? How do you think differently about talent? How do you think differently about financial reporting? How do you think differently about recruiting? How do you think about product development, et cetera, et cetera? Innovation challenge we do, this is a cross-campus effort. We work with the engineering school, the medical school, the School of Public Policy to form teams that focus on big societal problems that require technology. So 3 areas: healthcare, sustainability. We just launched a new one on generative AI. How can you use generative AI to solve some really large problems in society? Variety of partnerships we make use of in the school. And when you look at the winners, these are not CPG companies. These are deeply tech. I have to pay attention when I hear them pitch because I don't understand half of what they're saying, but I know what they're on to seems really, really big. Tetra C is an example: cell therapies for cancer treatment through a cell engineering technology. So they're improving types of cancer care. Acusera has a platelet-rich plasma eye drop that they've developed. Same thing on the sustainability side, the ability to do carbon capture more efficiently. So saying what's the most efficient way you can do that is the area of focus. Couple last things here on events. We just had our Tech and Society conference. By the way, for all of you that work for Amazon, we had the general manager and chief medical officer for Amazon Clinic. He was a rock star. Nwora Ayagu. He talked all about the platform that Amazon has created that matches healthcare providers with patients. That Amazon-esque capability of understanding the end customer, figuring out what the needs are, matching it, and I can only, he couldn't get into all the future. I just told the audience, I'm going to give you my own speculation. Think about where the chess game goes here. You create now transparency on healthcare, which today is probably at 1%. Transparency of availability of healthcare providers, of cost, of quality ratings. You have almost no transparency as a patient. With this ability, with a platform over time, the ability to create full transparency that could create a whole new kind of experience for a patient. So very, very exciting stuff. Adam Chire spoke. Adam was the co-founder of Siri. And he told us at the conference, this is just a few weeks ago, he had a stealth mode AI company, and he was very focused on creating a capability that isn't just the ability to get knowledge, but to do transactions. So you want to be able to say, Siri, in this new world, I want information on an Italian restaurant, but I want you to actually book a reservation for me. He just was in stealth mode. His company was just bought for $200 million, still in stealth mode. It was bought by Airbnb. Fascinating story, and he talked all about how entrepreneurs had to think, super lateral in what they do. In the future, January 26th, we have our Innovate conference. So all of you that can join either in person or remote, most of our events we do hybrid now. We've got the Chief Strategy Officer from Electronic Arts. We have Meryl Lee is at Meta. And Paul is at YouTube. They're both senior product managers. And we have an innovator spotlight from our innovation challenge. Couple other things. Arun Rao, for those of you that participated back in March or so, he did a whole review of generative AI. It was our largest event we've held. Had 1,000 people registered. He's going to be coming back and speaking on March 6th about saying what's happened in the last 12 months on generative AI. It should be just fascinating. He, as you'll remember, is one of our instructors at the Easton Center. So Michelle, where are you, Michelle? Michelle, here, right in front of me here. So Michelle is from the class of 2010. She works in the Office of Alumni Relations. She heads up marketing for them, and she's got an interesting technology-based innovation to share.
Thank you. Is the clicker here as well?
It is.
Okay. Thank you.
A couple there.
Okay. All right. All right. Hi, everyone. So I think John just gave me the perfect segue because he ended with how important our community is and the power of our alumni network. And I'm here to essentially talk about how we can help you build community in a way that's meaningful to you. So before I kind of dive in, how many of you have ever signed up or subscribed to one of our alumni listservs or used our alumni directory? Raise your hands if you ever. Okay, so many of you are familiar with it. You probably, if you've used it before, know that there's opportunities to, make the user experience a little better, a little more transparency, enable ongoing discussions because email listservs aren't really great for that. And I think all of you here who have made it out tonight probably came out for different reasons, but maybe it's to hear from the dean, Terry, John. Maybe it's just to hang out with each other, grab a beer, meet other people in Seattle, right? There's many reasons you might come out. And the alumni community is something that we are really excited about because we feel like whatever it is that you may need at different stages of your career and personal life, we want to be here to invest in your growth. And so UCLA Anderson has essentially invested in creating a platform, a digital connection platform that is kind of like a one-stop hub for all the things you need to connect, discover, in ways that are meaningful to you. So it's the alumni directory, it's our email listservs and sort of digital social groups all put together in one place. And, we know that, as you move along in your career or even your personal life, because I've learned today from talking to many of you that many of you may have moved to Seattle for a job, so you may not have an existing network here, that you want to build relationships, right? You want to continue to advance in your career. I heard from Rodrigo today that, he was like, I really want to hire Anderson people on my Amazon team, but I don't know how to easily do that, right? So there's a lot of things that you may want to connect for different reasons. And so the community is one way to do that. And the other thing is we're here today. We got to learn a lot of stuff, a lot of best practices, sharing insights. The community allows you to do that as well, because maybe you have questions about Gen AI, what other people are doing. Maybe you want to be an entrepreneur at some point, right? Maybe you want to seek advice of other Anderson alums. And also just discuss things that are important to you, right? Or even things that are just interesting to you. Many of you may be here in Seattle and you love craft wine. Maybe you like hiking. Maybe you have a family and you're trying to figure out how to get your kids into the best schools, right? Well, Anderson alumni have a lot of knowledge and they have a lot of insights. And I think this will really help to enable you to connect with each other and share that knowledge. And obviously we're here for an Easton event. So the community will allow you to engage with Easton and the different opportunities to give back, to speak, to engage, to continue learning. So there's a lot of things that the community will offer. So this is the QR code in case you want to join the community. There's also QR codes all on the different tables at the event. So join the community and just know that in there is a Seattle area alumni network group. There's a tech alumni group. There's a product management group. You can also follow different topics, including technology, maybe it's AI. We even just created a new Anderson soccer group. So there's a lot of things, there's a lot of opportunities to make this your own, to build community, however, it's meaningful to you. So yeah, and I will be around, so in case you have any questions, I can also demo it for you. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Excellent. So let me just close out with several thank yous here. First of all, I want to thank Gail Carpenter. By the way, Gail Carpenter is one of our newest members of the Anderson Board of Advisors. She's a CFO, VP of Finance for worldwide Amazon stores and consumer, and she was our host for tonight. Terrific addition to our board and super helpful. I also want to thank Sean Fassett, Gail's executive assistant, Chandra Case, the assistant program manager who organized this event for us, Kevin Holt and his team who recorded this event. And I'd like to thank our Easton staff. Heather has aged many, many years from this event, but she does a great job figuring out, if you ever want to put on a wedding, by the way, she'll figure out every last detail. So, but leave her alone because she needs a break from all that. Jill Heisey, thank you very much, Jill. Congratulations on your new role again, strategic partnerships. Jill Baldoff, I made Jill promise us we're going to have great turnout here. You didn't fail to satisfy. Good. And so a big thank you to them. And just, I want to thank all of you. I want to go back to the comment. The question was about lifelong learning. All of you have demonstrated that. I think one of the most critical things with all the trends that are going on now is stay current on what's going on. Tony talked about what we're going to be doing as a school. It's more imperative now because the rate of change is increasing. So let me just thank all of you. I also want to thank you ahead of time for your support of the Easton Center and Anderson. Big part of it. Whether it's you mentoring, staying engaged with class, financial contributions, all of the above are critical that allow us to do the work that we need to do. So we've got a reception going and we have the place till 8:55. Is that right? I got it right. 8:55. So enjoy the environment, enjoy the food. Wonderful to be together with you. Thank you.